the government has announced that the top 15% households are exempted from the petrol subsidies. If the targeted petrol subsidies can be executed smoothly, the T15 or T20 could expect more exclusion from other subsidies. But who are B40, M40 and the T20? It's not gonna be the same old way anymore. For years, this social classification decided where you stood in society, whether you are better or worse than your relatives or your friends. It's a pretty clear distinction back then. But not for long, because the Madani government is introducing a new system. And this matters a lot, not because you can start comparing or showing off, but precisely because it's going to decide how much subsidies you will qualify for, whether life gets a little easier or a whole lot harder. No matter who you are, as long as you're in Malaysia, this change is coming for you. Let's take a step back. The B40, M40, T20 system, while it was alright, it's not perfect. In fact, far from perfect. It doesn't consider household size or personal situations. Imagine this, Jenny and Lisa both earn 5,000 ringgit a month. Jenny has no kids and her parents still work. Lisa, on the other hand, supports 2 retired parents who need medical care and has 2 little kids running around. Same income, but their expenses completely different. And then there's location. What if Jenny lives in the middle of KL, paying sky-high rent, while Lisa lives in a smaller town like Kota Baru in Kelantan, where life is significantly cheaper? Right now, none of this is taken into account, and that's a huge problem. Now, if you're the government and you decide to give everyone 10,000 ringgit, the rich won't even feel it. And as for the poor, this is just a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Inflation, stagnant wage, and the high cost of living will eventually catch up. Heck, a research in early 2024 showed that over 65% of Malaysian fresh grads make less than 2,000 ringgit a month. That is barely survivable in the city centre. So, the real question is, how do you give the right support to the right people? To fix this, we need a net disposable income approach, which is what's left after essentials like food, rent and bills. And that's where PAKW comes in. Or, I like to call it PAKW, sounds better, right? It stands for Perbelanjaan Asaas Kehidupan Wajar, or Basic Expenditure of Decent Living. According to news reports, it is a newly created cost of living index calculated based on 419 items covering food and clothing to utilities and transportation. Bold claim. There's already a dedicated website where you can calculate your own basic expenditure. I'll put it in the pinned comment down below for you to try it out yourself. So let's try it together. Just an example, not me. Imagine I have a wife and 3 kids. Actually, that's kinda nice, right? Which means my number of households is 5, and we live in a small city such as Klang. Putting all of our details like the number of household, area of living, age and gender of each member, it says my family needs about 7,000 ringgit a month to live decently. Now, what does decent mean? It's not just about survival. According to the explanation provided, that basic expenditure should fulfill needs, wants, and the ability to participate in society. A decent life means you can eat out once in a while, enjoy a movie, or even pick up a hobby. It also means you can celebrate festive seasons like Chinese New Year, Hari Raya, or Deepavali without feeling left out. But here's the thing, the calculation provided doesn't include savings, investments, or loan repayments. So if I DIY it and add say 2,000 ringgit a month of savings, then after adding it all up, my monthly expected expenses plus disposable income come close to about 9,000 ringgit. You can try it out yourself. It's actually quite handy, especially if you are planning to say change jobs, move into a new area, or decide whether or not to have another kid. The tool might not be perfect, but at least you can compare the before and after cost to estimate how much you can save or even spend. So what do I think? Well, PAKW is definitely a step in the right direction. It's great because it's customized to your situation, your household size, location, and your needs. But here's the catch, it's only part of the puzzle. Unlike the B40, M40, and the T20 system, PAKW doesn't tell you where you stand compared to others. It only looks at your expenses. But one way PAKW can help us is to tackle things such as government subsidies better. Before this, the government has announced that the top 15% households are exempted from the petrol subsidies. If the targeted petrol subsidies can be executed smoothly, the T15 or T20 could expect more exclusion from other subsidies like electricity, cooking oil, chickens, eggs, and so on. However, one may argue as to who classifies as T20 or T15, and as such, PAKW is able to paint a more accurate picture on who is able to afford to be exempted from these subsidies based on their net disposable income. This would enable the government to subsequently create a better income classification system. Personally, I think targeted subsidies are important. They help close the wealth gap, reduce crime, and create social stability, which ultimately benefits everyone. But like any policy, there has to be balance, because if you go way overboard, you might invite two problems. One, the rich may evade tax, or they will just move to another country where they get to keep their wealth. That would be the last thing we wish to happen, since if our money flows out to another country and we lose those high taxpayers, either everyone left in the country needs to pay more tax, or our government will become poorer. Second, if the benefits for the poor are too good, we might be rewarding people for not working. If I can live decently without going to work, I would also just lie at home and play my video games all day long. I'm not saying we are there yet, but every policy is a two-edged sword. Push too far in one direction and it can backfire very easily. At the end of the day, for PAKW to work, the numbers have to reflect real life. It's no fun if you are paying sky-high bills but the government thinks your bill is very cheap, right? For one, I think the food component could be highly underestimated. Officially, Selangor's food cost is 507 ringgit per person per month. That's less than 17 ringgit a day for 3 meals. Not sure about you, but none of the working adults I know living in Selangor spend less than 600 ringgit a month on food, especially if you are working for long hours and barely have time to cook at home. But hey, what do you think? Try the PAKW calculator yourself to see how accurate it is and let me know your number in the comments down below.